Welcome to another episode of our ongoing hunt for the wheeler dealer cars. In this episode we are looking at the second two cars featured in Series 6, and they are a real pair of 80s big arch bruisers. They're a 1987 Porsche 944 Turbo and a 1986 Audi Quattro. So before you mention it, yes, I'm not in the garage, and there's good reason for that. The kit car's currently in bits. We're fitting a new cam mount to it and doing a few other jobs, so had to return inside for this one. The first of these two cars, the Porsche 944 Turbo, this episode first aired on the 12th of May 2009. Now Mike paid just £2,800 for the car, and in the market today obviously that is quite cheap. There wasn't too much in the heavy work to do on this one in regards to repairs and so on. It was more of an upgrade as they turned it into a track day car. They had the engine chip to increase the horsepower. They fitted a roll cage. They fitted some Sparco seats and some harnesses. They also acquired a second set of wheels, which Ed infamously painted in that really bright orange. And finally, Ed had taken out the sound deadening underneath the carpet to lighten the car and make it a bit more track car-y. So how did the numbers work out on this one? Well, the purchase price, as I already mentioned, was $2,800. The costs on it were quite eye-watering. They were £2,860. So quite a lot of money going on there. And then, excuse me, and then they sold it though for $6,650. Which left them a profit of £990. Now, we fast forward to 2024 and we use my usual benchmark, which I know a lot of you complain about, which is a Condition 1 car from Practical Classics Magazine's valuation guide. And that car now would be valued at £16,000, so that's quite a leap up. And increase in price, that's £9,350. So not a bad return if you'd hung on to that car for a few years longer. So what happened to AAW 944T after the show? Well, let's hop over to My Car Check and see what they've got. And good news, taxed MOT, so it's definitely alive and well. We can look at the ownership change, and the last ownership change was in September 22. And the previous one to that was actually Jan 13. So someone had that for nearly 10 years. So someone had definitely loved it. The other thing we can see is that car was actually originally registered with that AAW 944T. It did have a short period on another private plate, but that's the plate it came with from the factory. So let's have a look at the MOT history to get a feel of what's been happening with that car. Well, December 08. That was probably around about the time of the program, if not a bit before. It had a straightforward pass. Obviously, the program was released in May 09. So I had another MOT April 10, passed after a couple of minors, and then it passed again in March 11, and then it all goes quiet. We don't hear anything of it again until March 15, where it gets another MOT pass. But then it goes quiet again. It reappears in July 20, where it passes after a couple of minor fails. It then passes again in July 21. It is noted that it has got a noisy exhaust. So someone's obviously been tinkering there. And the other interesting thing at that point, that's where the speedo seems to have stopped working, because it's only done 3,000 miles since it was on the program. So it hasn't done a lot of work at all. So quite possibly it was used as a track day tool as intended. And then it passes again in December 2022 after it had a failure because of that noisy exhaust. And then finally another MOT just last December. So that one's definitely out there on the road. Now on my internet searching, what have I found? Excuse me. Well, Piston Heads, who are always a good source for information, a poster by the name of Tex Axile, back in 2016, said a friend of his owned a workshop and this car had been in it for a while due to engine issues. But he did also comment that despite the fact it's been a little while since it's been on the programme, it actually, the work carried out by wheeler dealers was considered to be of a high standard. So that's what I thought was quite interesting. And to tie in with this, I thought the gap between the 2011 and 2015 MOTs fits in with this gap of or area where we're talking about these engine issues. And the other thing is, when we look at the Pro 9 Facebook page, back in August 2021, they actually posted a picture of this car saying it's one that they'd done some work on a few years before. So that all neatly tied in together. Pro 9 are a Porsche specialist. And interestingly, on their website, this car is also featured on the for sale page. It says it's a car undergoing restoration, price on application. However, I do think this might be a little bit out of date because all the cars around it are sold. So I'm not aware, I've not come across anything more recent suggesting they're working on it. So this might just be old info on their website. And the last thing I could find on it was on platesmania.com, a new website to me. There was a picture of this car in August 2021 again, and it was pictured in Kidderminster. Someone's noticed it was the car from Wheeler Dealers. Excuse me, don't know what's up with my voice. And this was actually taken in a place called Kidderminster, which is only just down the road from Redditch, where Pro 9 are based. So that does all bear in relation. But of course, it then changed ownership in September 22, and we haven't really heard anything of it since. So as ever, if you know anything, it would be great if someone could let us know in the comments. So on to our second car, and this was a 1986 Audi Quattro. And this programme was first aired on the 19th of May 2009. Mike acquired this car through a local trader and paid just £3,800 for it, which, as we know what Quattro values have done, seems remarkably cheap. And the interesting thing is, this car didn't actually need that much work. Inside wise, there was a problem with the seat frame and the seat covers needed repair, so they combined sort of two good interiors into one. The clutch reservoir needed replacing. The bumpers were a little bit tatty, so Ed repaired them and got them repainted. And finally he had to put on a new set of rear wheel bearings, so there really wasn't an awful lot to do on this one. Now, money wise, as I mentioned, Mike paid £3,800 for it. The costs were just £768, and when they came to sell it, they sold it for £5,450. Now, wouldn't you just love to buy that car nowadays? That left them a profit of £882. So we go on to Practical Classics magazine, look at their valuation page, and that today suggests that car in condition one is worth £36,500. That's nearly 10 times what Mike paid for the original car. And over what they sold it for, that is a change of £31,050. That is by far and away the biggest price rise we've seen on a Wheeler Dealers car between the programme and today. That's quite eye-watering, that one, isn't it? So what happened to C64 FKJ after the programme? Well, let's first look at my car check and see what we've got. No real nasties. It's not written off, it's not stolen, but it does show that the tax and MOT have expired. And if we go and cross-check with DVLA, yep, the tax expired in February 20, but the MOT expired in November 18. Now, there is an oddity here that to tax a car in the UK, according to the DVLA website, you have to have it MOT'd, and tax lasts a maximum of a year. So I don't understand how it could still be taxed sort of nearly 18 months after the MOT had expired. Because that to me doesn't make sense, but you might be able to give me an answer in the comments. The other thing on DVLA is it tells us the last V5 was issued in 2011, So that means there's been no change of, or recorded change of ownership since then. Theoretically, it's still the owner it had not long after the program. If we have a look at MOT to try and give us an indication of what's been going on with it, there's a little bit of interest in the history before it, I think, came to the program. Now, this program went out in May 09. Back in April 08, it was put in for an MOT, failed, didn't fail that spectacularly, but was never represented. And then in August 08, it got represented, or got put in for another MOT, I should say. But for that one, it did fail, but it did get represented and it passed. Great stuff. It then, sometime shortly after that, I think, went with the program. And then it got MOT'd again in September 09, which it passed. October 10, which it passed. Great stuff. And then absolutely nothing. And then the next MOT it went in for was in November 17. Failed on a few minors. Got represented, passed. And then that MOT expired and we've heard nothing from it. Interestingly, it's only done about, and I'm going to check my numbers here, about 7,000 miles since August 08 to that last MOT pass. So it really hasn't done an awful lot, this one. But it's had no change of V5 recently. I'm guessing that one as, you know, it's still on somebody's ownership and it's just parked up at the moment and hopefully will reappear, especially considering the way the values have gone on those cars. I hope you really enjoyed those two. I love those two cars from the 80s because those big bulging arches was something that I always liked. And, you know, it's good that we think they're both still about. So if you have enjoyed this one, please do a little favour for us because we take time putting these videos together. Give that old subscribe button a click and that'll give us some real support at the channel. And in the meantime, here's another video that we think you're going to like.